It's February 25th, 1957, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A college student is driving along Susquehanna Road when he spots a rabbit dart into the brush on the side of the road. He knows there are animal traps set in those woods, so he stops his car, gets out, and walks in after it. What he finds isn't a rabbit, it's a cardboard box, and inside the box is a child, naked, beaten, malnourished. His hair recently and clumsily cut, so short that clumps of it still clung to the body. His nails had been trimmed. His body had been washed. Whoever left him there had cleaned him up first. He is approximately 4 years old. He has no name, no clothes, no ID. No one is looking for him. And for the next 65 years, no one will come forward to tell police who he is. This is the story of America's unknown child, a 4-year-old boy whose identity was stolen along with his life. A case that consumed investigators for over half a century. A mystery so haunting that the city of Philadelphia never forgot him. Strangers left flowers on his grave for decades, not even knowing his name. And it's the story of how, in 2022, a DNA puzzle made of what one scientist called confetti finally gave him back his name. His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli, and this is what we know happened to him. Let's go back to that February morning. The student who found the body was named Frederick Benonis. He was shaken. He drove away. He didn't call the police that night. He was afraid they'd confiscate his car. It wasn't until the next morning, February 26th, that he finally reported what he'd seen. Philadelphia police arrived at the scene on Susquehanna Road in the Fox Chase neighborhood, and what they found stopped them cold. The boy's naked body had been placed inside a large cardboard box, the kind used to ship a bassinet, sold at J.C. Penney. He was wrapped in a plaid blanket. His body was covered in bruises. His face showed signs of severe trauma. He had been beaten to death. Blunt force trauma, the medical examiner would later confirm. But here's what made the case immediately strange. The boy's body was clean. His nails were trimmed. His hair had been cut. Badly, roughly, but recently. There were clumps of hair on the body, suggesting the cut happened close to or after the time of death. Someone had prepared him. He had surgical scars. One on his ankle, one in his groin area, one L-shaped scar under his chin. This child had received medical care at some point in his short life. Someone had taken him to a doctor. Someone had known this boy existed, and yet no one reported him missing. Not one person in the entire city of Philadelphia said, "That's my son. That's my brother. I know that child." The police were initially optimistic. They took fingerprints. They canvassed the neighborhood. They waited for a tip. None came. Within days, the Philadelphia Inquirer printed 400,000 flyers with the boy's likeness and inserted one with every single gas bill in the city. His image went to courthouses, police stations, and post offices across 10 states. The American Medical Association sent out his description to doctors nationwide. 270 police academy cadets searched the woods around the discovery site, combing through brush and frozen ground. They found a blue corduroy cap with a leather strap, traced to a shop in South Philadelphia. The owner remembered selling it to a man between 26 and 30 years old. That man was never found. They found a children's scarf, a white handkerchief with the initial G in the corner. Dead ends, every one of them. The bassinet box itself was traced to a J.C. Penney store 15 miles away. That store had sold 12 of those boxes. Every single buyer paid in cash. No records. 8 of them eventually came forward and were cleared. The remaining 4 were never identified. After weeks of investigation, the Philadelphia Police Department had nothing. No name, no parents, no leads. The boy was buried in an unmarked grave in a potter's field, the burial ground for the unknown and unclaimed. He had no headstone, no name, no birthday. He had only a case number and a nickname that would follow him for 65 years. The boy in the box. Most cold cases fade. Investigators retire. Files gather dust. The world moves on. That did not happen here. The boy in the box burrowed himself into the conscience of Philadelphia. Year after year, detectives returned to the file. Civilians wrote letters. Journalists dug up old leads. And one man in particular, a medical examiner's employee named Remington Bristow, spent the last 33 years of his life trying to solve it. Bristow was not a detective. He had no official authority to investigate the case, but from the moment he saw that small body, he could not let it go. In 1960, 3 years after the discovery, Bristow did something unusual. He contacted a psychic in New Jersey. Now, I know what you're thinking, and you're not wrong to be skeptical. But here's what happened. The psychic told Bristow to look for a house, specifically a foster home. She described certain details, and when Bristow brought her to the Fox Chase area where the body was found, she walked directly to a foster home, located approximately 1.5 miles from the discovery site. Bristow was shaken. He started investigating the property. He attended an estate sale at the foster home, and there he found a J.C. Penney bassinet, the same kind of box the boy had been found in, and hanging on the clothesline outside, blankets, the same color, the same pattern as the one wrapped around the child's body. Bristow developed a theory. He believed the boy was the illegitimate son of the foster homeowner's stepdaughter, an unmarried woman whose pregnancy had been hidden. He believed the boy was killed and discarded to protect the family's reputation. He brought his theory to the police repeatedly for decades, but the police could not corroborate it. All foster children at the home were accounted for. There was no missing child. In 1998, a Philadelphia police lieutenant and members of the Vidocq Society, a prestigious group of retired law enforcement officers and forensic experts, formally interviewed the foster father and the stepdaughter. They were cleared. Remington Bristow died in 1993, still convinced he had found the answer, still haunted by the boy in the box. He never got closure, but he was not the last person to try. In February 2002, 45 years after the body was found, a woman walked into the Philadelphia Police Department. She identified herself only as Martha, or M, and she told investigators a story that made them go cold. Martha said she was the sister of the boy in the box, not biologically, but by acquisition. She claimed that in the summer of 1954, her mother had purchased a young boy from his birth parents, a transaction, a child, bought like property. The boy's name, she said, was Jonathan. For the next 2.5 years, Martha said Jonathan lived with her family. He was abused, physically, sexually, repeatedly. Then one night at dinner, he vomited. He had been given baked beans. He couldn't keep them down. And his mother, already volatile, already violent, lost control. She beat the boy. She slammed his head against the floor, again and again, until he went limp. She gave him a bath. He died in the bathtub. Martha said her mother then cut the boy's hair, cutting off his distinctive long locks to make him harder to identify. She wrapped him in a blanket. She put him in a box, and she made Martha help carry the body to the car. They drove to Fox Chase. As they were pulling the body from the trunk, a car stopped. A man asked if they needed help. Martha's mother told her to stand behind the vehicle, blocking the license plate, while she sent the man away. He drove off. They left the box in the woods. Now, here is where it gets chilling. The police had kept certain details of the case confidential for decades, details that were never made public, details that only someone with direct knowledge of the boy's death could know. Martha knew them. She knew the boy's stomach contained beans when he was found, a detail confirmed by the coroner, but never released to the public. She knew his fingers were water-wrinkled, consistent with the bathtub story. She knew about the car that stopped, a detail that matched a confidential witness statement from 1957, a motorist who had seen two people near a box on the side of the road and thought nothing of it. The investigators were unnerved. Her story was coherent. It was consistent. It matched the evidence. But there was a problem. Martha had a documented history of mental illness, and the neighbors who lived next to her family during that period, during the years when Jonathan was supposedly living there, said they had never seen a young boy at the house. They called Martha's claims ridiculous. Police could not verify the story. They could not disprove it either. Martha's theory was neither confirmed nor closed. It just hung there, unresolved, like everything else in this case. In 2008, forensic artist Frank Bender, the man who had famously reconstructed the face of mass murderer John List, developed yet another theory. He believed the boy in the box had been raised as a girl. The plucked eyebrows, the roughly cut long hair. Bender thought someone had been concealing the child's male identity. He published a reconstruction showing the boy with longer hair. No new leads emerged. By the 1990s, forensic science was entering a new era. In 1998, 41 years after the discovery, investigators made a decision. They exhumed the boy's body from the potter's field where he had been buried. They extracted DNA from one of his teeth. That same year, the city of Philadelphia gave him a better grave. Ivy Hill Cemetery in the Cedarbrook neighborhood donated a large plot. The coffin, the headstone, and the funeral were all donated by the son of the man who had originally buried the boy in 1957. Residents came to the reburial. Strangers, people who had followed this case for decades without knowing the boy's name. The headstone read, "America's unknown child. Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." The grave began to accumulate flowers, toys, small tokens left by people who felt something for a child they had never known. But the DNA hit nothing. The technology of the late 1990s was limited. The mitochondrial DNA extracted from the tooth, passed down through the mother's line, didn't match anything in the available databases. The case went cold again. In 2016, two writers named Jim Hoffman and Louis Romano believed they had found a match, a connection to a family in Memphis, Tennessee. They pushed for a DNA comparison. The Philadelphia police followed up. In December 2017, the results came back. No connection, another dead end. But by 2019, the Philadelphia Police Department had launched something new, a forensic genetic genealogy program, a partnership with outside experts to use modern genetic technology on dozens of cold cases, starting from 1957. They brought in forensic genealogist Colleen Fitzpatrick of Identifinders International. Fitzpatrick examined the DNA from the boy's remains. The years of burial had degraded it severely. She described his DNA as like confetti, little pieces, fragments, but she could work with fragments. Using genetic genealogy databases, the same technology that caught the Golden State Killer, her team identified a second cousin once removed of the boy. That person had voluntarily uploaded their DNA to a public database called GED Match. From there, investigators mapped out the family tree. A court order was obtained for a birth certificate, and in October 2021, 64 years after a college student found a child in a box, investigators finally knew the boy's name. They waited over a year before going public, confirming, cross-checking, getting DNA verification from living relatives. On November 30th, 2022, the Philadelphia Police Department made an announcement. On December 8th, 2022, at a press conference, Philadelphia Police Commissioner Danielle Outlaw stood before the cameras and said the words that 65 years of investigators had been unable to say. America's formerly unknown child has a name. His name is Joseph Augustus Zarelli. Joseph Augustus Zarelli was born on January 13th, 1953. He was 4 years old when he died. His parents were Mary Elizabeth Abel and Augustus John Zarelli, two lifelong Philadelphia residents. His mother died in 1991, his father in 2014. Both of them went to their graves without facing justice. Police confirmed that Joseph has living siblings on both sides of the family. Out of respect for them, the parents' identities were not immediately released publicly. In 2024, a new headstone was placed on Joseph's grave. His name finally carved in stone. A relative named Donna Thomas, a cousin who had provided a DNA sample that helped confirm the identification, attended the memorial. She told reporters she had no idea this was part of her family history. "He has a name," said Bill Fleischer of the Vidocq Society, "and I was raised to believe that when you say the name out loud of a loved one, that person still lives in spirit amongst us. Joseph Augustus Zarelli will no longer be that boy in the box." But here is what remains unresolved. The Philadelphia Police Department still does not know who killed Joseph Zarelli. They will not confirm what happened in the years between his birth and his death. They will not say whether his parents were responsible or whether there was another party involved, a buyer, an abuser, a woman like the one Martha described. The case is still classified as an open homicide investigation. His killer has never been named. Joseph Zarelli lived for 4 years. He received medical care. Those surgical scars prove someone at some point took him to a doctor. Someone saw him as worth saving. And then something happened. Something changed. and that same someone, or someone else, beat him to death and left him in a box on the side of a road. For 65 years, this city carried him. Strangers put flowers on a grave they couldn't even name. Detectives who never met him spent their careers trying to find out who he was. A man named Remington Bristow died still searching. Now Joseph has his name back, but the question that matters most, who did this to him and why, that question is still open. If you know anything, if you've heard something across the years, if a piece of this story sounds familiar, the Philadelphia Police Department is still asking for your help, because Joseph Augustus Zarelli deserves more than a name on a headstone. He deserves justice. If this video moved you, subscribe to Dark Lens, new dark history every week, and drop a comment below. Do you think the Martha theory holds up? I want to know what you think.